We are going live here with ProCare Health, and Echo Pelster is joining us today. Echo, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. It looks like we have some people here on Crowdcast joining us, so we welcome all of you, and we welcome those joining on Facebook as well. Today, we're talking with Echo about powerful mindset changes for lasting weight loss. And I kind of reached out to Echo. I actually met her through LinkedIn. I was just kind of like looking through LinkedIn, and I saw her as just kind of like just being a really interesting person. She's an author, a lifestyle coach, and a speaker. And really, I just found her really intriguing. She's actually had weight loss surgery herself. I'm going to let her tell a little bit about her own story, but she works with people about mindset, and I feel like her story is just really intriguing. Echo, I hope it's okay, but I'm just going to let you kind of do more of a formal introduction because your story and your background are just so incredibly intriguing.
Well, thank you, Brenda. And thanks for asking me to come. I love what I do, and I love helping other people get over the hump. I had my first weight loss surgery in 1984. I lost 65 pounds. And the next year, I started gaining weight again. And over the next 17 years, I took a lot of Prilosec. I had a lot of yo-yo dieting syndrome going on, and I gained and held at 357 pounds, and I really felt trapped in my body. I was starting to have some health problems from the weight, and mentally, I would look at myself in the mirror, and I just couldn't even imagine how to get out. It was though I had bars around me, and I could not get out of this body that was so incredibly huge at that point. And I'd lost something like 777 pounds by the time this was over. So I lost 203 pounds with the second Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and made the local paper, feeling pretty good about myself, and life happened again. And when that life kicked in this time, it was tumultuous because I gained 114 pounds, just almost like I took a breath. And now I'm hiding out. I'm going to work, I'm going home, I'm eating at night, and I'm just hiding out, but I don't seem to be able to get myself on track. And so at this point, I started really seeking out something other than psychology because I had been there through the process. And what I really discovered in the psychology process was they really kept me in the story, but they really weren't offering me a solution. And so I started seeking out solutions. And that's how The Twisted Love of Food Addiction became the book it is today. And I'm excited that so many people have the opportunity not only to read about my story, but to do the end of the chapter questions and journal for themselves. Because I think when you start looking into your previous conditioning and then into your truth, and is that conditioning serving you still today? If it's not, we have a process to get rid of it.
At this point, I want to kind of just like screen share just real quickly your book. Is that okay? Just like a
Sure.
picture of your book. It's such a pretty little design that you have. I'm gonna just share it here real quick. Share my screen because I want other people to see this. I think it's pretty cool. So, tell us about what made you decide to choose this cover.
Well, one thing I know for sure is I was sugar addicted, and I used to try to kid myself into, oh, you can have a little sugar. Well, having a little sugar for me meant having a lot of sugar for me. And I could literally start out with a little bit, and then in a few days, I was having a lot of it, literally. And so I felt people would resonate with sugar. And when I decided on this photo, there was a couple things going on in my head. One, sugar addiction and food addiction is a very twisted relationship. And we have a lot of beliefs, or I had a lot of beliefs about myself in that came, and my connection was food and my love was food. But notice I wrote releasing the pounds of pain, because there's something very true about when we lose something, like we lose weight, whatever we lose, we tend to mentally go back and try to find. And it explains in my mind how so many people literally go and find the weight they've lost over and over. I did. That's, if I have a little loose skin around my jaw, it's because it's been stretched out plenty of times gaining and losing weight, even though I've kept my weight off now for like 22 and a half years. And the other thing is, when we release the weight, we're releasing it. We're letting it go. We're no longer taking it back. But in the book, I talk about the more in control I tried to be, the more out of control I became. And I spent a lot of days and a lot of years white knuckling it through family events and holidays. And here's the truth. We're up on a holiday, but guess what? We don't have to go crazy, because there's going to be another holiday. It's just one of many.
It's true. It's true, Echo.
And I can teach you some very simple things to get through this holiday dinner that will allow you to enjoy it without guilt. And so, that's why this book is called what it is, because there's no blame, there's no shame. We just want to get you back into the game and get you healthy and get you on the track so you can live the life you were put here to live.
Echo, is it okay if I go ahead and share some of your other photos?
Sure.
Okay, since we're already here. So tell us about this picture.
That picture was taken in 1999. It was the last picture I had taken with my grandmother. And she loved me unconditionally. And I really learned, she was all about food, and she fixed everything with food. I didn't know when she gave me a cookie, I was supposed to put it on my knee. I always put it in my tummy. So, and my tummy shows it. And my leg in that photo was just about 4 inches smaller than my waist today. And I had no idea I looked that way, because when I looked in the mirror, I really didn't see myself that way. I had a very distorted body image at that time. The picture on the right was taken in 2018, and that was taken on the mountain in Santorini, Greece. And that was one of my rewards, because I no longer reward myself with food. But every year that I keep my weight off, I give myself a reward. And that was one of my treats.
Amazing, amazing. How about this one?
That was a picture that was just taken in our home. We were celebrating that I decided to write the book. And that picture is actually on the hardcover copy on Amazon on the book. And so if you like that picture of me, it's just a very real, true to life, relaxed, easygoing space of who I am. I had lots of people offer to do photo shoots for me, and I really appreciate that. But I'm real people. I live in the real world, have a real dog, have a real mess on my kitchen table.
You want people to be able to relate. And to me, this must be the picture with you and your grandma. Like that was the picture that was cut off. Yeah. And then how about this one? I kind of cut off. This must be, is this another book?
That's the book on transformation. And you'll also find that on
this one's Facebook, a little blurry. I apologize, guys.
Amazon. Jack Canfield did the foreword in this book. There's 30 women authors in this book, and it was my first attempt at telling my story. And my story in this book is called Releasing the Pounds of Pain. And I did a story about my brother's death in this book, and how when he died, it was really like nobody was talking to us about death and what happens to us in death. And what I really remember is people were just bringing cake. they were just finding room on the counter for cake. And I remember when I took the bite of cake through that event, something in my brain went off and I felt safe. The anxiety, the fear, the hurt was instantly gone. And so that's the story I told in this book. And there's 30 amazing women authors in this book, everything from physical abuse to emotional abuse to financial upsets and how they've overcome them. And so diabetes, lots of stories that'll help other people. But Jack did a great job on the forward, and he really made it as though he was writing about each and every woman who he's gotten to know through this process.
He's one of my favorite inspirational, I guess, motivational speakers, motivational people. So kudos to you for having someone as special as him have him do a forward to be someone who is part of your process. That's amazing. How about this?
That's me and my husband. And my husband has literally loved me through thick and thin. When I married him, I was like 289 pounds. And it was about a year after my sister's suicide. And I still really I think I was trying to process that, but I actually gained 75 pounds the first year we were married. And that was, we had our 25th anniversary last January. So, just to give you an idea, I was a really heavy person. I was in this body, and I know what that's like emotionally, physically, and otherwise.
So maybe is this your sister here? I noticed there's another picture here.
Nope, that's one of the hairdressers. I owned salons and spas for many years, and we were in Las Vegas. John Paul DeJoria was up near the stage, and so he just snapped that photo and he sent it to me one day. But I always liked that picture myself because I felt like it was so relaxed.
I love your hair color there too. It's just fun, it's a fun picture. And then we have one more, I think, here. Let me go ahead and take that one off. And this looks like you and your grandma again, huh?
It is. It is. And as you can see, this is after I was married, I'd gained more weight. I think this was the reality for me. I had traveled to see her, and I got on an airplane, and I literally could no longer maneuver in any way to snap. I had to ask for 2 extenders to snap my seatbelt, and it was so humiliating, and so I was feeling so bad about myself. And that picture, every time I see it, I remember being in that blouse on that airplane and just really knowing what it was like to be trapped there.
So we're going back to your picture now, and so this is where you are now. And so I'm going to kind of come back to where we are and stop sharing my screen. There we go. So Scotty says, I need your book really bad. I can resonate with this right now. Where can we purchase this? So while you're talking, I'm going to actually share my screen one more time. Is it okay if I just go to your website right now? We'll be sharing this again.
Sure.
But I'd love to share that. Is that okay?
Yes. And I'd love to know in the chat who's resonating with me and who's, tell us some of the ways you felt because of your size. And I want you to know it's not your fault. If you believe in any way, shape, or form that you have been lazy or a sloth or anything like that, and that's created your weight, and you can relate to that because someone has said that to you, I would love for you to perk up in the chat about this, because here's the truth. It is not your fault. We are so overwhelmed with food information today that we really have these ideas that if we eat carbs or if we eat calories, we will go and have a certain body size. But the truth of the matter is, neither one's true. UCLA has done a lot of weight loss studies, and they've literally proved that being on a high carb or a low carb diet will have nothing to do with one another within 1 pound over 1 year for both test subjects. And so one of the things I really believed that I was just a fat, lazy slob because my dad came from a family like that. And so that was a mental picture I had of myself that it wasn't even true. In fact, what I really realized, I was 9 years old and my mom had said to me, "You cannot have a birthday cake because you are too fat." And my birthday was October 1st. And my brother had just had a birthday a couple weeks before he turned 3. He had a birthday cake. I wanted a birthday cake. I wanted to pick out what kind, just like he did. And it was not an option because I was too fat. I was a fat slob like my dad. And it took about 30 years. And I wish I had the picture today. I found a picture of myself when I was 9, and I was just a normal looking 9-year-old girl. The truth of the matter was, though, how I saw myself in my head after that was much different because of that statement. And what I realized was, wow, I wish I would have seen that a long time ago because I looked like every other kid in my class. That was the truth. And my feelings were so hurt about that, not being allowed. If I would have heard, you can have a birthday cake on Saturday because we don't have the money right now or something like that, I probably wouldn't have been affected the same, but I suddenly felt differently about who I was. And what's interesting is my dad wasn't heavy at that time. I found a picture of him. They were divorced. And the other thing was I found a family picture of him around that time, right after he'd come back from Vietnam in the service. And he was very handsome, looked like Elvis Presley. I mean, just very handsome. And there was 2 people out of the 13 in his family that were actually heavy at that time. So not everybody in his family was heavy. But I was raised to believe that obesity would be my choice because I had the genetics. So it wasn't the truth at all. In fact, most of them were not, I mean, some of them had a little weight, but for the most part, not so much. I attached to that belief system.
I'm going to pop over here too while you're talking, and I'm going to just share. Well, we're going to share your website more here in a little bit, but I want to just show them. I shared your site while you were talking on both Facebook and Berry Nation, because that's another place we're sharing, and also Facebook. When you get to her website, when you go here to the bottom of her page, you're going to find the different things that she offers, some of the courses, and we'll talk about those more here towards the end because she does offer some other products. But here's the book right here. The book, The Twisted Love of Food Addiction. Now, is your other book on here too, the one that you were talking about?
Yes, it is. Releasing
right
the
here.
Pain right there.
Okay. So both of those books are there. And they are also on Amazon too. So if anybody, both of them they're both on Amazon, correct? Actually,
Right.
I went and I didn't realize you had the second book until later. So I have it on. So guys, if you look on Kindle, see it right there. Can see. You can buy it on Kindle too.
Yes, and I think we've had it on sale on Kindle for a really reasonable, like under $5.
Yeah, I don't even remember how much I paid for it, but I was like, I want to read it right away. So I'm just going to download it right here. But if you go to her website, you said you will actually autograph a copy.
That's right. And
right?
we'll send it off to you. That's why it's $5 more than it is on Amazon, because I'll personalize it and autograph it to you and send it out to you. So glad to do that. I think anytime you can have the personal information. The other thing that you'll find in there is my email address is in the book. All my personal information's in the book, how you can contact me. So find that in the forward there.
And I found I have some interview questions that Echo and I kind of talked about. I was just like incredibly amazed some of the things that Echo was humble enough to put in the book. And we're going to talk about some of those things. I was just like, are you sure you're okay with me sharing some of these things? They're like really, she was very open about her life and some of the things that she shared. So thank you, Echo. And we're going to talk about some of those things. Scotty says, I feel like I'm sliding backwards and I have no motivation. I feel lazy and worthless. I'm in desperate need of mental reset. I have also been in a lot of pain due to sciatica. I stretched and gotten steroid injections, but they haven't helped. And then Sarah says, thank you for sharing your story. I had a similar message growing up and realizing how damaging it was. I'm 9 months post-op. Bryn and I have lost 120 pounds. I feel very free and like I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm feeling anxious about the attention I get in public and now anxious about regain, even though everything is going great. Any tips about comments? I did make a public Facebook about asking people to stop commenting about my body, but it seems so ingrained in society that they can't help themselves. So I don't know if you want to talk about Scotty's first and then kind of move on to Sarah too, so that you
I
can
would
share.
love to talk about that. You know, if you have an injury, you're going to need to deal with the injury before you try to go back to stretching and, you know, work with your healthcare provider with that, definitely. But when she talked about, and I don't know if I can move this to see. Oh, there we go. When she said she's felt like she's sliding backwards, I remember that feeling very much. And here's the thing, when you feel like you're sliding backwards, generally you're trying to hang on. And when we're hanging on, we're using so much energy that we can't really do what needs done. And what really needs done in that moment of sliding backwards is we need to stop and we need to challenge whatever is going on. Because, see, I know that food is only a distraction. That's all it is. I can tell you every time I ever went on a binge, it was over anxiety or fear. And once in a while, boredom or loneliness. But it is never about the food, ever. And that's why mindset is so important in this area. So 6 deep breaths. And I literally say, you know, take it in, blow it out like you're blowing through a straw before you make a decision. I used to do it in the grocery store to get through buying my groceries so I wouldn't go home with things I did not want to go and have in my kitchen. So, you know, stop, challenge that a bit, see if you can choose something that's better for you at that moment, in that backsliding moment. And, you know, I used to say, I'm just going to surrender this. Is this something I can change right here and now? And if it's not, why am I fighting it? And then I would just wait 30 minutes because your emotions change so much over a 30-minute period. And then I'd go back and revisit it and it would always look different. So, you know, if I can help you by not reacting, you know, I always say for every event, we get to choose how we act or react. And that's always going to choose our outcome. So that's one thing. And then I love the, and Scotty, so just really hang in there, you know, just really hang in there because that's really what it's all about. And then I don't know if you're doing any practices like to have some miracles in your day, but I have 20 minutes where when I wake up in the morning, I start my gratitude list just for waking up. And that's a good place to set a calm. And then at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you didn't have a bad day. You may have had some experiences that didn't go as well as you would like them to go. Look at them, what went well, what didn't go well, and what would you like to change? And let it go. And kiss yourself goodnight in the mirror. I think it really helps. And then I want to go on to Sarah a little bit here. I really heard some things there. She's 9 months post Roux-en-Y. I remember being right there, 120 pounds down. It's interesting how we cannot accept someone else's love and compliment about our body. And I'm going to be really honest here. I had a client who actually said, wow, when you get down where you're going to be really sexy and have boobs. And I remember that just taking me aback at that moment. And the reason I felt that way is because I realize now I was really uncomfortable with the skin I was in. And so I couldn't accept that compliment. I couldn't accept that warmth because really, my friend Brenda, who said that, was just loving me. She was just like, so, wow, you are a wow woman. She was giving me every compliment in the world. But see, there was something already inside me that couldn't accept that. It's kind of like if I said to you, Sarah, you have green hair, you'd say, no, I don't. And you'd probably laugh that off. But if I said, Sarah, you're looking really horrible today, and I don't know why you have that attitude and blah, blah, blah. See, Sarah's only known me 5 minutes. But if she takes that to heart and she's inside her head going, wow, how did she know that about me so quickly? See, that message was there before she ever met me. And that's why it's so important to sort out what's the message and why am I thinking that? And what am I telling myself about myself? And for me, when I was getting those compliments and unable to accept them, it was really me being so afraid that I would gain the weight back again and I wouldn't be worthy of the compliment.
So, Echo, why do you think mindset and beliefs contribute to weight loss and weight gain?
Well, because I think there's something that happens for us. There's a couple things. Do you usually get your way when you're being really willful?
You mean like if you're being really intentional and you're focused on something, are you asking if we get our way then?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 100%. Like if you're putting all your attention on something,
But
whether you want it or not.
is that the best thing for you? So I always say willfulness creates a wall around me. And for me, it was a wall of fat. When I wasn't willing to be open-minded, I was being willful and unable to learn and move forward. But when I had willingness, I became willing to learn, open to new ideas, open to new suggestions. But I had these beliefs that I could not go and just jump in and do that because, see, I was afraid. I had been hurt so many times that I believed if I opened myself up to that, I would get hurt every single time. I never talked about my past. I didn't live in my story particularly. In fact, I swallowed my story. It was cake and pie and cookies and junk food. And oh, if I sat down with you for a meal, I ate perfectly. It was what I was doing in private that was the issue. And so when we look at how we have been conditioned to become who we are as an obese person, and we have been conditioned to that. And what's really ironic is it's all neuroplasticity, because what we were conditioned to be fat, we can also be conditioned to be thin.
I think that will give people hope that's on this call, because sometimes I think we think that they're, I think a lot of times people, what I'm seeing in some of these comments is that they don't see hope. But there is. It's all about conditioning, whether it's ours, our parents, future generations.
Well, imagine, I don't know your area, but imagine that your brain is like different areas. Like we have our frontal lobe, and then we have our reptilian brain that lives back here, and we have our right and left lobes. And each one of those parts of our brains has like a little neuron that's like a little road to it. And every time we use that habit of overeating, that habit of pleasure that comes with that, that particular road becomes a little wider, and maybe the path less traveled grows over. So when we start changing how we are conditioned to ourselves just by changing, say, one habit a day, and maybe we do that habit every day for a week, a month, or a year, now we're going to let that bad habit path grow over, and you're not going to be able to see it anymore after a while. And we're going to widen that road less traveled and create that new way of life. Does that make sense?
It does to me. It does to me. And there's some more comments here coming in too. Echo, is it okay if I bring those in?
Sure.
Okay. Kathy says, I have found that many of the compliments that come are the only way others know to be supportive. May not be important to me. We need to give ourselves and others some grace about doing the best we know to do with what we currently know or have. We need to educate others on how they can support us in ways that they make a difference. Choose not to be offended. With regard to hurt, I often ask clients, so what's the worst? Sorry, I had a pop up. So what's the worst that can happen if blank happens? And then remind, what will you do? Rarely is it ever as bad as we will make it be. Anything want to say that?
I love every bit of that, because she's right on. We either accept what's sent to us or we reject it. But sometimes we don't have to do anything. Sometimes if we feel like we're getting really negative feedback, and she's right, people compliment us because they don't know another way to support us. But we have to think about, what's our relationship with this person? Is this who we're going home to dinner with? Or is this someone we're going to see once a year at a family event? And is it that important? Sometimes I find it's just easier to say, thank you for letting me know that. Because now I can change the conversation. Because it doesn't matter. Is it going to change my life? Not today. No. But when you just know that you can just thank them for that, and ask yourself, would I like my relationship with this person to be different? Is this one of the people that I need to have in my network? And would I love for this person to be in my network? And should I, hey, I'd love to discuss that further. Can we have a cup of coffee next week? If the coffee doesn't go well, then maybe you don't do it again. But it's how we replace the time we used to spend eating. We call it life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Scotty says, that's exactly how I feel right now. So private, that's the biggest issue. I don't feel the hope. And I think like hope and trust and belief, you were talking about miracles a while ago. A lot of our emotions, if we can just find ways to, sometimes I think it's about just supporting a belief, supporting maybe just the belief that something can happen, that it maybe that even if we don't see it yet, that it is happening and that it can happen and that things can change and things, because sometimes when we don't see it yet, it's hard to believe. So just taking a breath and just trusting and seeing the process as it unfolds. And, what would you say to that?
Absolutely right. Because, don't quit before the miracle happens. I remember being on those long plateaus after my surgery. Mm-hmm. I remember how that really went. And there was some things that I really had learned to do. One, I learned to do my supplementation, and I learned to do it well. And what I really remember about that was I did not have as much need to feed when I was supplementing. In fact, I still take my supplementation today. So it's really important that you do that. The other thing is, When I was feeding my spirit for hope, it wasn't about the food anymore. It was about who was Echo and how can we find out who she is and who she'd like to be. See, I did everything I was supposed to do. I wanted to be an artist and a hippie. I'm going to be really honest. I wanted to write books, be an artist and a hippie. And I went to school to become what other people wanted me to be. And one thing I know about us as people is we have a disease to please. And that disease to please often takes us further away from ourselves. Who can relate to that? And who has that? If you'll just put a me in the comments. That disease to please will take us down roads that we never really wanted to go, but we wanted someone else to love us, to accept us, to feel. We had unreal expectations of what they might do for us if they could go and if we could just please someone else, even if it made ourselves miserable. Now, how many of you have gone and volunteered to do something you truly didn't want to do because you really had the disease to please? And then when the day came, you either canceled because you couldn't show up for it, or you felt really ashamed, or you just really went with a bad attitude and were really miserable because it wasn't where you wanted to be. Yes. Yep. I'm seeing a yep there. And that's exactly what I used to do. And so those became incompletes in my life because now I felt like I was isolating. I couldn't show up. I couldn't go back to this event or that event because I'd let them down. And you know what? I broke my promise to myself first. See, when I agree to do something today, when you reached out to me, Brenda, I had a conversation with myself. Gee, would you like to do that for Pro Health? Oh, gosh, yes. That sounds like I could maybe come and help a lot of people that day. I've been excited about having it on my calendar because it was something I was passionate about. I wasn't pleasing you. I was fulfilling my purpose in life. So finding your purpose through this process is huge. How many of you can imagine doing what I'm doing right now? Maybe you have your own story to tell. Maybe you'd like to tell your story in a book.
Yeah. So Kathy's commenting. Is it okay if I read that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She says it's hard sometimes to discern what is needing to be fed. A great resource about multiple hungers is Mindful Eating by Jan Chosen Bays. MD. She identifies 9 hungers and is often one of the others, not food. Echo's statement about feeding our spirit is one of those hungers. This can be a game changer.
Absolutely. And I actually have read Jan's book, and I agree, because so many times we're not hungry, we're thirsty, or we're bored, or we're lonely. There's so many hungers that come into our life. But imagine this need to feed, it's only a false hunger. And let me tell you where that comes from. I'd just like to see a me in the comments if you cannot even imagine what your body would look like if you were thin. Because you've never seen that, or maybe it's just been so long you can't see that. Scotty says, me, Amy, me. Now, I want you to think about this a minute. I'm going to show you a way to visualize your body when that false hunger comes up. Because it is false hunger. It's like this monster. And here's where it comes from. I was listening to Spotify like 2 days ago, and I heard this commercial, and it was going something like this. Ooh, absolutely orgasmic vanilla cheesecake. And I'm like, oh my gosh. See, it pulled the emotion into the food. Coca-Cola does it right now with all the Christmas commercials. They literally pull it in with that heartfelt helping the little old lady, Santa helping the little old lady across the street. And then at the end, it's sugar fix. And so imagine now your shadow. And if you can't imagine that, imagine when you were a little kid and you used to try to go out and step on your shadow. Now close your eyes. With your shadow, you have the perfect silhouette of who you are inside you. So the next time you're out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, put your back to the west or the sun behind you if you don't know which way west is. I used to be like that. And just take a picture of your shadow. And then you can Photoshop that and you can dress yourself any way you'd like. But you've got the perfect body shape of yourself. And where you need those little smoothings out, just go ahead and do it when you Photoshop and put that on your refrigerator. And now we've got the real you. Feed what needs fed to get the vision. And it's really true. If you can get a vision, I had to see me as who I could be and love me at 357 pounds. Because, see, I realized I could not go and become someone else if I couldn't love who I was right here and now. And that was a part of taking that brick out of that wall and becoming vulnerable. I literally had to take out all those bricks, that wall around me, that fluffy coat of fat, one process at a time. And so when I was afraid, I had to say, well, what are you afraid of? Well, I was afraid I'd be raped again if I was thin. See,
Echo, let's talk a little bit about that too, because I know in your book, like you talk a little bit about some of this stuff. That's chapter 9. You talk about your self-esteem, and you talk about the story of that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
No, I'd be glad to. I was raped when I was 14. I was raped by someone I knew. So, and it was someone I liked. And so that made it even all the more hard because it was someone I liked and I trusted. And I did not expect this at all, but I had a bad feeling that day. And he had come to our house and he was going to leave. And I thought, good, he's going to leave. But he asked my mother suddenly if I could go and walk him home. And I thought, that's kind of weird. Doesn't the boy usually walk the girl home, not the other way around? But my mother's like, sure, you can go. Well, no one asked me if I wanted to go, which was my first red flag. And internally it was there, but I was not speaking up and I was not responding to that. And I in no way was responsible because I did or did not do something there. So we go to his house and we get there and no one's there. And my hand got pinched in a door or a side of a railing. Oh, we've got ice. We can put that on there. And so now I'm in the house alone with this boy and he raped me. And then he acted like I did something to cause that. And I was angry. I remember being so angry. I wanted to do something, but I already knew he was stronger than me and I couldn't do anything about that. And so I just really wanted to get out of there. And I went home and I remember I told my mother and she said, well, that's what you can expect from men. And I believed her. And I think a lot of bad relationships followed. I'm in my third marriage now, 25 years, but my first marriage was, 5 years. I was divorced and then I was married again and that was a bad relationship. And, I spent a lot of time in that situation, definitely. But what I really realized was it wouldn't have been nearly as bad if I wouldn't have had this response from my mother, who was supposed, you think of your mother as being a caretaker, which she didn't have a track record for that at that point, but to have that response. And then a couple of days later, this boy comes to our front door and he threatens me. And he basically said, well, if you were prettier, I'd let you be my girlfriend. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's no way I'd want to be your girlfriend, because I'm still mad. I'm still hurt from this event. And then about 2 days later, his stepbrother starts shooting me with a BB gun on the way home from school. And these boys are taunting me, and they're telling me that if I ever tell anyone, I will, it'll be worse than anything I can even imagine. Now, the backside of this story is, and this is how our mind works, because I literally started taking a different route home from school. I was hiding out. I didn't go anywhere after school. I didn't go to the park. I didn't go to my friend's house because I was afraid these boys would find me. So I was living in fear, literally. But what really is ironic is I didn't go back to my hometown and see certain people because they were there. And it's just been in the last 10 years that I discovered that all 3 of those boys were dead. So they were still ruling my life, and they didn't even exist. And I realized at that moment that at least be smart enough to Google before you make a decision. I actually found a way to laugh about that. But, that's a powerful message of how fear can take you over and stop you from living life and being around people that you would like to go back and see, because you're just afraid of what'll happen if you go back. See, it was all in my mind. It wasn't in anyone else's anymore because they were gone.
And Echo, bringing that up just makes me think too. I know I've heard a lot of people say that that abuse of some sort, whether it be sexual or other kinds of abuse, a lot of times food can be sort of kind of a protective thing. People eat because they feel that the food will, I don't know if it's like the layers of protection that people put upon themselves. I don't know if you've heard that before, but I know I've heard
I think
that.
very, very, very subconscious, because
Mhm.
I've never met anyone that really was obese that didn't want to be thin, even if they wouldn't confess that truth to others. And if you can relate to that, you want to be thin, but you don't want to admit it, because if you admit it, you might fail.
Mhm.
If that sounds like you, please give me a me in there, because that was who I was. I wanted to be thin, but I couldn't stop. And I'm going to be really honest. I woke up every single day wanting to eat right. I wanted to exercise. And every single afternoon, I broke my promise to myself by not following through with that plan. And I got together with famous Amos, famous Dave, and little Debbie. And if I was really having a bad day, maybe Mrs. Fields also.
So this is the thing. It's like, so then why do we do those things? Like you were talking about, like those subconscious things. Why do we do those things where we have some kind of alternative thing that's protecting us or that's helping us in some way? Sometimes I think we just don't know what that is. Like we are doing something to help us, but we just don't know what it is. We're like deep down, we know we want to be more of ourselves. We know we want to, like you said, you want to be healthy. You want to be more of who you are. You want the world to see you, that shining aspect of you. But sometimes when we're told so many times, all of those all that harshness, and yeah.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head in that statement, Brenda, because what you really said there was, we want to be that part of ourselves, and desperately we want to be
Mhm.
seen and acknowledged.
Mhm.
But then, because of how it turns out, we become invisible.
Mhm.
And so then we isolate and we don't go out. And I would encourage you, definitely to start going out, even if it's just on your block to start out if you're isolating. And just don't worry about what other people think of you. What other people think of you is none of your business, because if it's really good, it'll go to your head. And if it's really bad, it'll go to your heart. And so just trust the process and don't quit this before the miracle happens, because this is the truth. And here's what I know for sure. Beliefs are what keeps us there in that mentality, but values is what pulls us out. But we have to debunk our personal beliefs and find out what our true values are. And once we can find that out, it's powerful. I do this class called What is Food to You? Well, Brenda, what you eat for your diet may be totally different than what I eat for my diet. And neither one of it is incorrect. But if you figure out what food is for you and how it truly works for you, and you're so comfortable with that eating regimen and you're meeting your body's requirements to be healthy, then it's the perfect program for you.
Mm-hmm.
The question I always get is, what do I do on special occasions? Well, my question is, if it's not food any other time, why would you eat it on a special occasion? Because my question would be, is the treat you're giving yourself mistreating you? Ooh, big one, huh? Is the treat I'm about to give myself for this special occasion mistreating me? And so when I look at this, when I debunk the belief part through the process, what we find out is what's valuable. And when we find out what's valuable, we find out so much about a person, because now what stopped them from being able to make the decision to take care of themselves turns into, I'm ready to take care of myself. I just need to figure out which program is going to work good for me, and they're on a roll. That's why this is so valuable. But it flows into all areas of life. We start with our body, we end up working on our finances, we work on our relationships, we just work on everything.
So Echo, I know we're getting kind of close. We had so much more that we wanted to share. I wish we could have gotten to more, but I know we're kind of getting closer to a little bit of closure. And
Well, I'd like to just throw in, I know we want to talk about my programs, we want to talk a little bit about that, but I'd like to give a challenge to this group. One thing I know about food reward is when we think of that piece of chocolate cake, or we think of that thing that's about to send us over into that binge, we just got the dopamine effect we were really looking for. The neurotransmitter already went off. Okay, you didn't have to eat the calories to get it. You just didn't know you got it. So the next time that happens, I would challenge you to wait about 3 hours and then taste that food, and I'll bet you'll want to spit it out. Because it's not the taste of the food that you're after, it's the dopamine charge that's coming with that food. And it's a great delay technique. I've used it a zillion times with myself. And I even got to where I'd say, well, if I still want that on Saturday, I'll taste it. And then the other thing going into this holiday is, I want you to go and enjoy the food and the company and the fellowship of your families. And it's a big part of who we have to become, because this isn't the first Christmas. This isn't the first New Year's. We're going to have one every year. But if you will go and just take a little bit, the first bite to taste, the second bite to enjoy, and the third bite to say goodbye, you will walk away from this holiday feast so much different than you would have had you not had that little bit of information.
thank you for giving us a tool, something to use for the holidays.
And it works. It works. Even for
Mhm.
people who don't have eating issues, it works. Because they always say, well, I always feel like I gained 5 pounds. You don't have to gain the 5 pounds.
Mhm.
So shall we share?
Yeah, yeah. So what would you like for me to pull up first?
Well, let's talk a little bit about my new program, the 200 Days of Neuroscience program. And
Okay.
it's going to be on sale through January the 5th. And it's about half price. So you can't go wrong on this one. And it's going to happen on a live Zoom every Monday night between January the 16th and August the 14th of this year. And I'm doing a kickoff price on this. 50%, $749. You can make payments on my website. Just follow the prompts and it'll show you how to do that. And this program is literally 200 days or 29 weeks that you're going to be online with me and learn some new skills for getting back on track, getting away from the backsliding, just developing the habits, because habits take 69 to 100 days to implement. And then the other thing that I have going on is for $20.23, we have a new masterclass, and it's 2 90-minute sessions, January the 2nd and January the 9th. And they're both on Monday nights at 7 o'clock Central Time. And you can
I'm going to
sign
your
up for
website.
those. And if you're going to go and come to those, you're going to get a lot of information. And like I said, it's $20.23 for that one. And I'm just going to be doing a lot of teaching about how we need to unteach ourselves on those 2 classes. So those are 2 amazing opportunities for you.
So Echo, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to make sure that the people that are listening know how to find this. I'm copying your website. That flyer that I put up first, when they go to your website to find out more information about these, the very first one, if they were to click on to, your website and go down, the 200-day neuro weight loss challenge is right here. That's the flyer that I showed. If I page up just a little bit, a little higher, this neuroscience on weight loss masterclass, January 2nd, 9th, is the second product that you were talking about, correct? The 2023. Okay.
Correct. And the master class is actually leading into the big class, but I knew that I may have some people for financial reasons who couldn't afford to do both. And I wanted to give them an opportunity to get a taste of what I had to offer and to wrap around some of the concepts in my book. And so I really felt like I needed to do both, because the January 2nd and the January 9th is going to start off the new year. And then, of course, the following Monday is the 16th of January, and we'll be leading right into that new program. And I provide a workbook and a community for you in there where you're going to create some new relationships and learn more about yourself. And I'm not going to tell you you won't have homework. Because you probably will have some homework. And the biggest homework we do is the homework we do on ourselves every single day, creating a new habit. And I don't want you to forget to talk about the chocolates.
Oh, yes. So it's okay. So I want to make sure anybody doesn't have any questions. I just posted Echo's products,
Perfect.
her
Yes.
website. So I'm going to just post that there. I'm also going to post it on Facebook. I'm doing that right now. And I'm also going to post it on Berry Nation. I didn't even tell you we post on Berry Nation, which is another Echo's products. I'm posting there too as well. I posted 3 different places here. And then I'm going to talk just a little bit about ProCare, our sponsor too, for all of you guys. We got a very, very special little thing going on. So I'm super excited about it. Super excited about. Some of you guys, if you're on Instagram, may already know this because we've been kind of posting on there. But if any of you guys have been around ProCare Health for very long, one of people's favorite products is our calcium. They're called calcium dark chocolate calcium squares. They're 500 milligrams of calcium and 500 IUs of vitamin D. They're 65% dark chocolate. They're cacao to bar, gluten-free, kosher. They're 50 calories. They're less than 1 gram of sugar. They're so good. They're people's favorites. And so I'll show you what they look like. They're like little squares. I'll show you a little graphic of them. They just arrived. They're seasonal. They just arrived today. We usually have them starting in October, but what happened was we had a manufacturing delay. So we're just getting them in right now. And so super excited. They're on the website. I'll show you how to get them on the website. So that's what they look like in the bars. And I will share on the website here where they are, where you guys can find them. So kind of go to our website, share the screen one more time. I thought I had it pulled up. Yep, ProCare Health website. If you go to the ProCare website, it's on our banner, and all you have to do is click there. Okay, the banner has these little buttons you can press. The first button, that's where it is. Shop now. And so there's a 30 count bag or a 90 count bag. So whichever you want to choose, the 30 count bag is $23.99. The 90 count bag is $59.39. I had to laugh because last night when this all started coming about, I sent out an email to, we have affiliates that we work really closely with. And I sent an email out to them last night to let them know that we were going to be restocking them. And before we sent this out to the general public, and literally some of our affiliates posted this, and like 3 or 4 of them went and bought a whole year's supply. I have to laugh. I thought it was funny. So a whole year's supply of chocolate in their boxes already. So people love them. So anyways, we are right at time, and I don't see any more questions. It looks like, Echo, thank you for being here too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I cannot tell you how much, when people read my book, they think I have a lot to be angry about. But one thing I know for sure is an eye for an eye only leads to more blindness. And I am here not only to help the doctors and the surgeons and the medical people that help post-bariatric clients, but also the ones who have fallen through the cracks on this issue. And I want to, I really believe there's so much we can do as people. And, loving one another really comes just from having an ear. And so I'm glad you saw my post. I'm glad you reached out. And don't forget to reach out, everyone, and see me on Facebook, Echo Laymon Pelster, and on LinkedIn, Echo Laymon Pelster. I post a blog about every week, and my website has lots of great blog articles for you.
And I want to say too, Echo, sometimes I think the hardest things that we go through, like that contrast in life, like those really, really hard moments, as hard as they are, they help us to more clearly see the things that we want in life and help us to be those things. I mean, they help us to sway other people in that direction. And sometimes I think they're almost like our gifts and our talents. There are passion for life. There are I'm trying to think of the word for it. They're the reason we're here. Our mission for life. They're a mission for life.
We use our strength for good, or we use them for evil. Mm-hmm. And here's the truth. When you take something and use it that was intended for bad, but you use it for good, and you lift other people up because you understand, I think there's some rewards out there in the universe for us. You know, I really think it's that simple. Whenever I wanted to go on that next binge when I was going through this process, I taught myself to do the opposite. You know, and it's the same way with our emotions. We can master our emotions and we can overcome the hurts, the hangups, and the habits that we have developed, and we can change who we are without giving up who we are.
100%. That's a great closing note. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Be who you are over Christmas. Amplify that truth of who you are without hiding behind it. So blessings to each of you. Echo, stay on the call. As when we end the call, we'll be still here. So thank you, everybody. Have a very Merry Christmas. And this recording will be available right after we